Hello and welcome to episode 51. We are so close, folks. We're almost there. Of the Movie Bros podcast, if I didn't already say that. We are your hosts, as always, Duncan and Hayden. I am Duncan, he is Hayden. Hello, hello, hello.
I'm Hayden. I'm right here with you. Welcome back.
And if you are new, this is a weekly podcast of two brothers who pick a movie, watch that movie, discuss, ramble, banter, argue, debate, all the things you can think of for a movie. We have done it. And if you look back over the last 50 or so episodes, we've covered just about every kind of movie you can think of. But if there's something particularly juicy you want us to talk about, give us a suggestion. Drop us a line, shoot us a text, a DM, as the kids are doing these days. No smoke
A
signals
WhatsApp,
allowed.
a TikTok, a Snapchat.
Are you TikToking?
I'm ticking and talking. I'm a regular clock.
So we are available on Instagram. I just breezed over that. We are available on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify is where you are probably listening to it, but that you're not required to. Excuse me. And potentially Amazon and Apple Podcasts. I haven't checked that one in a while. I may not even done it correctly in the first place, but that's where you can technically find us. And yeah, this is just kind of what we do, and that's who we are. But before we get any farther, Hayden, what have we watched, and what are we talking about?
So, as our listeners and returning listeners may remember, we talked about Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning about a month ago or so, roughly 2 episodes ago, something
Yeah,
like
give or
that.
take. Yeah, about a month.
So, we are now rounding out the series with the final reckoning. We're trying to do at least one thing that's a current movie in theaters, and this is what we chose. We're going to be doing the Tom Cruise action epic. Some quick film facts and a bit of a disclaimer here. As we saw this in theaters, neither one of us have live notes to read off of. This is just going to be coming from our memories, coming from our on the day recollections. So this might be a little bit less of a structured episode, but it'll still be a very similar one that you've heard in the past. So this was released, obviously, this year, in the year of 2025. This is written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie, with writing help by Eric Jendresen. This is also someone who worked on the previous movie, so at least in theory, you're going to have the same sort of feeling. Unfortunately, we do not bring back Lorne Balfe to do music. We have instead two people I've never heard of, named Max Arouge and Alfie Godfrey. Cinematography, we have a returning name of Fraser Taggart. He's been on all of the missions, so they do kind of all look in the same style. And now our long cast list, we're going to have some returning, some new faces for some reason, but we have obviously Tom Cruise, the man, the myth, the legend, Haley Atwell, Simon Pegg, Ving Rhames, Isai Morales, Pom Klementoff, Henry Cezerny, Janik McTeer, Nick Offerman, Hannah Waddington, Angela Bassett, Chris Parnell, Shay Wiggum, Katie O'Brien, featuring Mark Gatiss, Rolf Saxon, and Tremel Tillman.
If that sounds like a lot of people, that's because it is. And we
Although
will talk
I would
about.
say like 2/3 of those are returning cast. Now,
Well,
that is
sure,
still a
yes.
lot of new cast to throw in your final reckoning, but like it's not actually a whole lot of new faces.
I think it's too many, but whatever.
Hey, we will get to that because trust me, I'm kind of right there with you.
So I feel like we should just rip the Band-Aid off and I mean,
So I
however,
think because it is still technically a new movie, we're reviewing it the month it came out. We should do like scores, give a spoiler warning and then go into reasoning. Just because in theory we should want to make sure that this does have some sort of a surprise element for people who haven't seen it yet.
that's fair. Okay, yeah. I was thinking the same thing of, yeah, we should probably start with scores and then yeah.
Although
Okay.
to be fair, if you've seen a Mission Impossible movie, you know what happens.
Wait, does he accomplish his mission?
These missions are seeming increasingly possible.
Well, what are you thinking, Hayden?
So I was pretty underwhelmed. I mean, for context, I saw this last night, and then today at work, it was kind of kicking around in the back of my mind. And the more I thought about it, the more disappointed I became when I really picked apart what I had watched. This is sitting at a 2 out of 5 for me. I think this actually qualifies as bad, especially when you compare it to the rest of the series.
Well, I would say if you compare it to the rest of the series, yes, it is not good.
It's
I
not up to the standard of the other ones, but if
sure.
you compare it as okay, if for some reason I consider this like a standalone movie, it's fine. It's like a 3 out of 5, but compared to the highs of the other ones, it really doesn't measure up.
Well, it's. I feel like this one is such a, like a slingshot back and forth because I gave a like a 3 to 3.5 out of 5 only because I mean again I don't know if we want to give too much reasoning yet, but like uh you watch these movies for the stunts and I mean in my opinion the stunts in this were pretty amazing and that's really what saved whatever you want to call the rating for me at least. Again,
I
it's
mean,
not a
that's fair. I
great.
mean, to be fair, the no pun intended, the final stunt, the one that they show in the trailer, it's not like a spoiler where he's on the biplane. That is
Oh, it's
incredible.
crazy. Yeah.
That is insane. And I was watching like a couple interviews with Christopher McQuarrie, and he's like, "Look, there's no camera rig. There's not like I'm not giving him
Mhm.
direction in a headset. He's literally holding like a GoPro style thing in one hand and actually steering with his foot. Like
Yep. Yep.
that's insane. Who does
Mhm.
that?
Well, I even saw, I mean, this is kind of like a side thing, but the guy who did Top Gun Maverick, who was doing F1,
Oh,
I don't know if you
Kaczynski
saw the bit
saying,
or
"Yeah, we could not cast Tom Cruise, or else he would have died."
yes, which I totally understand that.
I mean, he's not wrong. The man has an adrenaline problem. I genuinely think
So that is our
so.
ratings. So generally either okay to not that great, which
Is a
I
weird place to be at for a series that, while it has never been the most serious thing in the world, is held in pretty high regard.
oh, at least as a like very competent action series, yes.
Yeah.
Like
All right.
it's
So
not.
we're
I don't think it's
gonna.
going to win an Oscar for like a drama, but like
I mean, it should win the Oscar for the upcoming like
stunt.
stunt stuff that they're going to be putting
Yes,
in, which it obviously deserves.
I don't think there's any way that it can't at this point. I'll be honest.
It's. I mean, I could. I mean, if you wanted to make that argument, we could say also John Wick, or
Maybe, but even
insert anything by David Lightek. But even like those are all battling out for second place.
exactly.
So we're going to take just the brief moment here to mention that anything we talk about after this point should be considered a spoiler. If you have any interest in watching this movie, despite what we just said, pause the episode, go to the theater, watch the movie, which is genuinely how you should experience this one. Then come back and you can join us with your own thoughts. That being said, where would you like to start on this 3 hour behemoth, Duncan?
So with it being 3 hours, I think just an FYI, folks, this might be a longer episode because I figure we just go through the plot and just talk about the plot as it goes. That way we can kind of really pick it apart because
Sure.
there's I mean, because it's 3 hours and they try to, and it's the last one, they try to pack in a lot. And sometimes that works well, and sometimes that doesn't. I think there's gonna be a lot to talk about.
So right off the bat, before we actually do that, should we consider this the last one? Because not that I mean, not that I want to
Uh,
rush to the end, because I don't want to do that, but like it, they don't kill off Tom Cruise. The
nope.
majority of the team survives.
Literally
It's
the only
clearly not the final
so
reckoning.
obviously a spoiler, but literally the only person who actually dies in this movie is uh,
Is Luther?
Luther, Vin Rames. Yeah, and I know they killed off Rebecca Ferguson in the previous one, but like,
It doesn't count. Not this movie.
it,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think. Well, I know he's got a ton of Tom Cruise has got a ton of other projects going, and I feel
Always
like by the
does.
time, well, no, that's a good thing. I like him as a actor. and I
Yeah,
like
so do I.
how passionate he is about actually, just movies in general.
Hmm.
But I think by the time he is done with all those other projects, I think he will be too old at that point.
I mean, he's in his
But
60s now.
what I'm thinking is, he's probably going to take the next. I bet he's going to do other things for at least a decade, and by then he would have taken a decade away from this series. That's long enough to where they could either reboot or they could show him as an old man having trained the new guy. That kind of thing. That's my thought.
I think both of those are very equally possible.
Which I'm perfect. I mean, I'm kind of at the point where I'm fine with that.
And I think I'm probably leaning more in the direction that they are going to give this a little while to sit. Tom
I
Cruise
hope they
goes
do.
off and does some other stuff, and then it's he comes back as the grizzled veteran training
Yes.
Glenn Powell.
I don't. I don't want. Okay, well, then maybe that's a separate conversation. But like, I, I don't. He doesn't have. Glenn Powell doesn't. Glenn Powell doesn't have the right face.
And I agree. I was just sort of making a Top Gun reference, but let's say
Sure.
you had to pick.
Honestly, Miles Teller. I like Miles Teller.
I do as well. I almost think it needs to be someone unknown
Yeah, I, I,
because
I,
I mean,
I think for
granted,
most
even at
projects, that's the right call for the most part.
yes, but they're never going to do it, or
No, of course not.
not almost always. Even if at the time of the first Mission Impossible, it wasn't like Tom Cruise wasn't an established actor though. Like I mean,
I get what you're
I
saying.
don't know.
No, he wasn't a nobody. He wasn't obviously as big a star as he is now, but he definitely wasn't a nobody for sure.
For sure, for sure.
I feel like that was a side tangent. I don't remember what we were talking about. Oh, just
We were
the
saying
ending. Yes,
how this wasn't really
I
the final
I
reckoning.
I think it is the quote final reckoning for Tom Cruise as like the guy. Oh, so when you and I watched that John Williams uh documentary, it referenced obviously a lot of his favorite famous movies, and one of them, or multiple, included uh, Harrison Ford. And I was thinking, I was like, man, both Harrison Ford and someone like Tom Cruise, there's not really a replacement for either of those guys. Like, that's why there can't really be another Indiana Jones. I don't know if there can really be another Ethan Hunt. Just don't.
Well,
I don't know. You know what I mean?
so I think you're right, but I think that, and not that I actually want to wish this, but I think the reason that there isn't a replacement for them is because they're both still alive. You know,
Fair.
like, well, I mean, because like, there's constantly people like being like, oh, this is such and such. Oh, they're the new James Dean or they're the new Elvis or whatever. It's just like, okay, yes, they might be the greats, but you can't replace the greats while they're alive. And obviously, I'm not wishing death on Tom Cruise or Harrison Ford, but I think that's probably why we feel that way.
That does make sense because, yeah, maybe it would be different in 20 years. By then, Harrison Ford is definitely going to be dead, and Tom Cruise will be in his 80s. And knowing Tom Cruise, he might be dead by then.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I don't want to sound like a Star Wars stereotype, but it's going to be real sad when Harrison Ford
Oh
or
yeah,
Mark
dude.
Hamill dies. Like that's gonna affect me a lot, like in probably an embarrassing way. But that's gonna be real sad.
Well, I mean, there. Harrison Ford. Uh, yeah, I mean, I feel like even someone like Spielberg or
Oh,
Lucas,
I mean,
dude.
this could be a whole nother discussion of directors that we hold as important personally, and
Sure.
I would probably have a long list. You would probably have a similar list with slightly different people.
Yeah, let's not talk about just people dying.
Well, actually, on the subject, I think circling back to Final Reckoning, in a weird way, I think I wanted more people to bite the dust in this,
Oh, I
especially from the
100%
main
agree.
cast,
Well, so at
because
first I thought
it,
that's what they were
there's
going to
no
do because
weight to anything.
no, not really. Everyone, I mean, so I'm glad they killed off Luther. I think that's a perfectly fine thing. Uh, they should have just killed off Simon Pegg. They basically almost did it,
I
and then they're like, never mind. Just kill him.
I get that this whole series is, you know, I mean, like the Mission Impossible series is people doing extraordinary feats and surviving death. That's like the whole point. Dude was like dead. He had a collapsed lung. He was dying in Paris's arms. Like it would
Which
have been a fine, noble death. He helped,
yes, it
defuse
would have felt
bombs and all
earned.
this other stuff. Yes.
Well, and again, I feel like I reached over and said this to our dad when we watched together, but like, uh, the whole movie felt like they were trying to kill off the old guard and bring in the new team, which I am perfectly fine. Like the younger African American guy, the French girl, Palm, uh,
Yep.
Haley Atwell, I guess, but yeah, I don't. I think the stakes were both high for this and also non-existent.
Which is an incredibly weird feeling to have because I felt that the entire time. Like they kept going, "Oh, it's the end of the world of this and this and this happens," but like, it's not going to. The only real
Yeah,
stakes character wise are which characters are we going to kill off, and so by the end of it being, oh, we really only killed off one guy
in the
like two
first
hours
20
ago.
minutes, yeah.
That's an emotional impact of nothing.
Looking at the plot, oh man, so I feel like this. So there was in the uh in the modern era of Mission Impossible. So starting with like number 4, there is a
Which
certain
one is
degree
that?
a
Is that Ghost
that's
Protocol
Ghost
or
Protocol, then Rogue Nation, then Fallout.
right?
So I feel like they told. So there's really two storylines. There's one that runs from like that involves the Syndicate and all of that. That runs from basically Ghost Protocol through Rogue Nation and ends in Fallout. And they take basically 3 full movies to flush this out and do it well.
Yeah.
And this, I feel like, is the same amount of story that they should have done. And obviously, it's 2 3-hour movies, so I feel like this could have the pacing and everything could have done like it would have felt correct if they had just given it the same amount of
Yes.
movie. Like,
You
just do 3 movies, don't do 2 movies.
Yeah. Well, remember, I mean, this will be kind of a throwback to the other episode, but when we were talking about um
Dead
Dead
Reckoning.
Reckoning Part 1, like that's also a point we had there. It's like, okay, this
Yes.
feels like there's too much stuff stuffed into this. There's too many stunts. It
Hmm.
feels overlong. Like
Yes.
I came away from this, I mean, weirdly enough, kind of wanting more stunts, but also, yeah, I think it is. There's for being 3 hours long, it still feels bloated.
Well, yes, because like it was like at the 2-hour mark or whatever, and they just finished the underwater scene, which I have some serious thoughts about.
I
And
was
I was like,
gonna
oh,
ask.
that's super cool. And then I was like, oh, there's another hour with like more stunt. Like again, it's all cool stuff, but it felt, if you're looking at it story wise, the amount of over explaining and like I like the referencing back to the original movies throughout the movie, like all the homages and like, oh, here's this
I
character. I
think
liked
this
it.
got gratuitous.
But
I
that's what
mean,
I'm saying. It was too much for just trying to
yes,
pack it in one movie. If they did that over the course of, like if they knew that this was going to be the end a while ago before they started Dead Reckoning, if they started laying that groundwork then and did it over 3 movies, I think this would actually have been really, really good.
yes,
Um, yeah.
and I so there is a plot moment where they reference back to MI3, where
Yes, which
Philip
I
Seymour
remember
Hoffman.
almost nothing from.
I I remember Philip Seymour Hoffman playing a great villain. Could not tell you what the fuck happened in that movie though.
Yep, that is
So
exactly my thought. Yep.
I as they explained to us, um, Philip Seymour Hoffman has captured his wife or something like that,
Yeah, and basically
and
forces him to steal a dirty bomb. Yeah. Like a
correct,
bioweapon.
and Well, in that one, they actually do call it a dirty bomb. In this one, they retcon it into being, oh, actually, that's the starting origin of the
Of the
entity, which
entity. Yeah.
grinds my fucking gears. We got through 3 hours of this movie and they never gave it a name.
Yeah, it's too generic
I
of a name.
The entity sucks as a name for your villain. That may as well be like naming Lord Voldemort the guy.
I did like that they made, like, the CIA guy that's sort of hunting him, sort of helping him, who always squints, who looks like he's taking a shit
Yes.
all the time. I
Yeah.
like that he
Shea
made him
Wiggum.
the yeah, Shea Wiggum, which I like him as an actor generally, but,
I think
I
he's a
like
good
that they
comedic actor, actually.
yeah, have you seen him? I mean, this is pretty new, but he did a small role in something called Bad Thoughts on Netflix, as he plays, like, the straight
I don't
man
even know what that
against
is.
it's like a short sketch, series, either way,
Oh,
um, he's the son, though, of John Voight, who betrayed the IMF in the original. I liked that.
I think that's an interesting idea. I don't know that that had as much like emotional payoff as it could have, just because there are so many other things going on. Like, it was cool that they pointed it out, and now that they mentioned, yeah, they do look alike.
Mhm.
Like, that's good
Yes.
casting. That's an interesting idea. And they even say in that plane ride, oh, Hunt, when all this is over, we'll have our own final reckoning. They don't say a single damn thing at the end of the movie. They shake hands and walk away. What was the point?
But what was the point of all of the, like, here's way too much, Nick Offerman and all the other random dudes who are from other like, I recognize basically all of them from something,
Yeah.
but then they're like, "Well, let's give them
So
screen time."
I mean this with the greatest respect to Angela Bassett. I think she's fine as the president here. Take that whole plot line out.
Oh, yeah, you
Just
don't need it.
just throw it away. We can hear in like expositionary, oh, the president's thinking of doing this and the other with nuclear war on the horizon. We don't need to go back every 5 minutes and like check in on how everyone in that Oval Office is feeling emotionally when we're doing action sequences. That was so irritating.
Well, yeah, that's where I think this movie burns a lot of, A, time, but also just, they build up, interest with all the stunts and everything, and then they lose that interest when they go back to, like, "Hey, here, we're gonna explain everything that just happened and why it's important to the movie."
This one did feel very hand-holdy in a way that the others didn't. Like, don't get me wrong, the other ones like explain what's going on, but like you just said, like it you watch what happens, and then Tom Cruise will nearly like look straight into camera and then explain what just happened. Like, we didn't just watch it.
Well, I think it's also because they make the like it was so obvious of like, oh, they need to find the like in Dead Reckoning, they're like, oh, we need to find where the entity comes from and kill it, and then it was I feel like it was pretty straightforward. And then they're like, oh, but there's also this poison pill malware, and there's also like a they have to get this source code out of the system, and it has to be they have to give it to Gabriel, even though he's not actually friends with the internet. Like they made it way too many steps to
I
get there.
and it really felt like they were at the last second trying to overcomplicate the plot to make it seem more intricate than it actually was. Because at the end of the day, what did they actually need to do? They needed to plug two USB sticks together, and they
Yes.
needed to unplug another USB stick from a special terminal, and that's the whole movie. Like, there are stunts surrounding those plot points. That's the whole movie.
More or less, but yes.
How do you feel about Paris coming back from the dead for some reason?
I'm fine with that. I like her actually. She
Yeah,
was the
I think
right
she's
amount of
both a
like
good actress and she's, clearly attractive. So
no, yes. And again, I feel like when you look at the team as the new team, like the I like the combination of like the like semi-normal
I
guy being like,
think,
"What? This is fucking crazy," the black guy, and then her being like,
hmm
"I'm just here to kill people."
I
And
think
I
her
like that
character and
combination.
Simon Pegg's character had a lot of
Yes,
fun back and
yes.
forth. So
Like,
I don't mind it, but I do think they needed to explain how she isn't dead a little more, just because like they do a flashback of, oh, she got stabbed. Nope, she's fine, and then we never mention it again. For a movie that really wants to over explain stuff, some parts they just didn't even touch on.
and while I absolutely love uh, Ethan hanging out with the uh, aircraft carrier captain, who just the amount of
Oh,
charisma that guy has is fantastic.
he nearly steals the whole movie. He's great.
Yeah, but
Oh,
that
or do you mean the
plus,
sub guy?
yes, that plus uh, all the interaction with the blonde captain of the boat. I can't remember her name, even though I recognize her from something. Uh,
Hannah Waddington.
I don't know. There's like three different layers of interaction that gets him to the sub. That
I feel like we
I
could have just
just,
cut to
I
him
don't
getting
know.
to the sub and not needing like the entire conversation that he has with Hannah Waddington. Like I agree. I like her as an actor too. That is a completely unnecessary scene
Hmm.
that just should goes to say, "Hey, look, it's this person you probably recognize from something." And that whole conversation he has in her office explaining the plot that again has already been explained in detail to the audience takes like 15 minutes.
Yes, and again, that happens throughout so it all adds up. That's the thing. Like, once again, I feel like my like idea of like they build up the interest and the thrill of the actual action and the stunts, and then they destroy it with all that kind of stuff. It rings so true because they go from that shit to like him going through the submarine.
Oh,
Pretty
the
fucking
submarine
cool.
stuff is awesome. I think you probably appreciate that more than I just because you have a scuba background, but like I still really enjoyed that.
So when he's in the submarine, very cool. As soon as he is trying to escape, all dive physics go out the fucking window. Like,
It did seem that way, yes.
the amount of yeah, there's so many different points during that little like sequence when I leaned over to my our dad and I was like, he'd be dead here. Oh, he'd also be dead here. Oh, his lungs would overexpanded. He's dead. Oh, he's not in a suit. Literally, the
Oh, but
water
Duncan,
pressure
it's
from
Tom
his death.
Cruise.
No, no,
He's
no. Like,
fine.
oh, and then okay, so he gets to the surface, sure, and it's somehow gets to the surface. B, uh, well, here actually let me break that down
We
first.
get
So,
the we get the gratuitous boob shot of
oh,
Haley
dude,
Atwell.
I told you would know the scene when you saw it.
Hey,
It's of
I
her
have
is
eyes and I am a straight man, so
oh,
yes.
okay, but hold on. So him getting to the surface. So as you descend, everything is compressing. Yeah. So even the air in your lungs is compressing. So there's going to be a point because people are naturally buoyant if you hold your breath, but as you descend, when that air in your lungs compresses, you're not going to be as buoyant. So there's a point in depth where you are no longer positively buoyant, which means it's going to be way, way harder to swim. Like, he's not just going to float up. And he was like several hundred feet deep, holding it just doesn't
Yeah,
make fucking sense. Then he's also getting the bends, and there's no way, even if he so I'm getting ahead of myself. Uh, let's say, let's say he's holding this breath at least somewhat, if not a lot, just to make that swim all the way to the surface, convulsing and all that stuff. Sure. And what does air do as it goes up? It expands. There's no
oh yeah, he
way
would have
he,
exploded like a balloon.
yeah, his lungs, there's no way they didn't pop. Then, even with time in a recompression chamber, which sure, let's say that all the things worked out and he's in there with Haley Atwell for several days or whatever, sure.
Well,
Which
I was curious, did something like that like exist?
I don't know if
Like
a
the portable
mobile one.
version that they
No, I
had?
don't
Yeah.
think that's real.
Okay. I'm just
Like
curious.
at all. But even if that happened, he would have some pretty severe like side effects and residual like uh getting bent can do a lot of different things to your body. Like, it can rewire your brain chemistry, it can fuck up your joints. Like, there's so many, like, your sense of balance is going to be way the fuck, like, there's so many different things that even with being in a recompression chamber, like, yes, you will survive, but then there's another, you know, over hour of movie where he's basically Mr. like, I'm perfectly fine. I don't know. It was very cool, and some of like the visuals stunning.
I was actually thinking about this while I was watching, like, while I would never say that the Mission Impossible movies are, like, artistic, I mean, sometimes in Fallout it got there a little bit, but I think I'm just biased because I think Fallout's the best one.
No, I think I agree, but yes, I think they're not
I
generally
think
cinematic, or at least
no,
artistic. Yeah, they can be
but
cinematic. They may
I
not be
think I
artistic.
think for the underwater shots in this, I think it actually gets there. I think there are a lot of things where the
Yes, no,
movie
I
actually
agree.
has time to slow down a little bit, and we can appreciate the lighting. We can appreciate, you know, the dark blues and him standing out with his, little suit lights and everything. I think that look is actually very nice. However, after that, we were right back into the Arctic ice and everything's washed out as shit.
So after that, they cut to them in that bunker, and that's where Gabriel is like, "Oh, I have another bomb here. So either you're in the server room doing the
Dude
thing."
pulling megaton bombs out of his ass the whole movie.
Yes,
Where is he
yes.
getting these?
I mean, he's got a guy.
Is
Everyone's
there
got a
is there
guy.
is there like a Walmart he's visiting for supervillains?
I'm sure it's out there somewhere. But what I'm saying is that was so they even reference, oh, like not everyone's gonna make it. Like, oh, you probably can't even get to that doorway in 10 seconds. That was such an easy spot for someone to die.
I mean, and we mentioned it a couple of minutes earlier. Simon Pegg was literally dying. They could have given him the honorable death that he literally had earned. I
No,
don't.
so like kill Simon Pegg in the server room, and then have the older couple make it die, and the young black guy makes because obviously that makes the most sense outside the server. Like it just the movie seemed like, okay, now there's like an entire like fleet of people doing this thing. Like they have to
Yeah,
take two cars to get to the bunker because there's so many goddamn people.
and I guess like the overwhelming reaction I had to this is that it kept hinting that it wanted to take risks,
And
and
it
then it
didn't.
just didn't do it.
Agreed. I very much agree with that. But like, because I feel like we've been pretty generally negative so far. So I feel like like obviously we talked about some good stuff, but like uh the sure all the all the plane stuff, amazing.
I mean,
It's really
even if
amazing.
I know that Tom Cruise is like an actual professional and he owns planes and he is an actual like licensed pilot, that's fucking nuts. That's that's so
Well,
crazy.
and then they cut to like even him jumping with the parachute where the first one burns up. All of
Yeah,
because they did that to a certain degree.
someone had to do that. Yeah.
I did kind of chuckle when Gabriel tries to parachute and then it's just hit by the plane's rudder and dies. Like, kind of
I,
an underwhelming death, but also kind of funny.
I mean, everyone in my theater laughed, and that is a bad thing for your de facto main representation of the villain.
But I guess the
Like, I
question
just
is he the villain?
he is one of the main villains. He is not the entity, because we actually have the entity speaking in this one, kind of, when he puts on his, like, mind control mask in the earlier part of the movie. But Gabriel, even just since Dead Reckoning, the last one, has been the main driving force villain in the movie. Like, I just
Sure.
to kill him off in a way which causes everyone to laugh about it, I think is a mistake.
It was, again, generally underwhelming.
Like, I feel like that was like so close to being perfect, but the way that he died was too comedic. I think him
Hmm.
still falling off the plane is fine. Like, but have him like fall into like a propeller or something. Like, make him make him
Something.
suffer in the way that
Or
he
maybe
made the
he
character
lands and
suffer.
he ends up getting surrounded by Kittredge and he's taken away to be, tortured or whatever. But yeah.
Something.
Uh, all of this. So them trying to find the coordinates for The drop in the like Eskimo hut.
Yep.
Yeah, I eh.
That one was kind of grating to me. And I don't want to just sit to the entire episode and bitch, but like that takes up like 20 minutes of runtime.
Oh, at least.
Why why are we doing this? Like
Well,
because the whole thing was
besides
like,
just
oh,
trying to introduce Donlo, who was exiled.
yes, and I get the whole point of, oh, hey guys, look, it's the one guy from the first movie. That's fun. That's fine. The fact that we spent like a quarter of the runtime, roughly, something like that, right? Like we didn't need to do that because the whole point of them being in that cabin was like, oh, we have to find the coordinates, and to do that, we have to remake a floppy disk drive. Come to find out, at the very end of the scene is like, oh, sorry, the floppy disks aren't even here. We were just stalling for no reason. Why? Why the fuck? Why were we doing that? And on the other hand, though, that does ferry us into a very fun action sequence where it's got Paris and Simon Pegg fighting the Russian guys while the flames
Yeah.
climb up the walls. That's fun. So I didn't mind it that much. I there's a reoccurring theme in this movie of we have a great action set piece, but we need to sludge through some of the worst dialogue and plot progression you've ever seen to actually get to it.
And I think that's why it's not a terrible movie, because the good is really good. Like the stunts are really cool, but
Yep.
and like it's still like the sludge is sludge, but like it's high quality sludge. Like it's not like, oh, this is like some really shitty movie. Like the
No.
quality of it, if that makes any kind of sense,
Well,
or like
see, it's weird. Like, kind of like how we mentioned earlier, like, if this wasn't a part of a series and somehow we already had all the knowledge of the previous one before you watch this one, I think this was pretty good. But because the standard for Mission Impossible is just so high for the amount of excitement you expect from those movies, this is so underwhelming.
well, and how much they like pumped this one up, being like, oh, this is it.
And that that has been pissing me off all afternoon. And I've really tried not to be like come into this being angry, but the more I think about it, the entire ad campaign from this, whether it was intentional or not, was, oh, it's the final one. Tom Cruise has been doing this for 30 years. This is it, guys. You got to go see it. This is the last one. No, the fuck it isn't.
Eh,
People would have watched this anyway.
It might be.
It might be. But my whole thing is, it's Mission Impossible. It's not like people aren't going to go watch it. You
Sure.
didn't need to in my opinion, lie to people to get them to go see this. Like Mission Impossible as a franchise prints its own money. Like I don't understand why they chose to do that. That's just it seems so unnecessary because it causes me to feel disappointed that it wasn't a more definitive end to any character that wasn't Luther.
And thinking of the older guard, and sure, they judged up Luther to look obviously more sick and old than he was, but
Well, actually,
Simon
I
Simon
was
Pegg does not
curious.
look so good anymore. Boy.
Well, he is he's in his middle 50s now.
Well, yeah, it's just, even if you, I mean, obviously it's hard to compare the two, but if you put Simon Pegg next to Tom Cruise, who is roughly a decade older than him.
True, true. I did have a moment where I was watching, Luther do his stuff, and I'm thinking, was he sick in the other ones? I don't
Nope,
remember that being a
he
thing.
was
Did he
not.
just randomly become
Yep,
sick literally on his deathbed for no real reason in
yep,
this?
100%.
Like, did I fucking miss some huge plot here? What is going on? Okay, so I wasn't like hallucinating and thinking that just was never explained.
No, they just wanted to, I feel like, pump up the emotional, like, oh man, him and his buddy Ethan are not gonna like be able to be hanging out all the time anymore, saving the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that death felt earned. I don't.
Oh, I agree. I think that's, again, I think that death is earned, and if they had killed off Simon Pegg, that would have been an earned death. Like
Yes,
in the end, like he tells them exactly how to do all the things to, save the world from the entity, and then they look over and he's dead.
yeah. I mean, I think it, and also he's like surrounded by essentially computer heaven. That would have been his thing, and it would have been like symbolic in a way. They really missed an opportunity. So we've said several things that we didn't like. Let's do 10 minutes where we say things we liked.
That's a lot of 10 minutes is a long time, Hayden.
It's got to be possible. It's 5 minutes for each of us.
Okay, well, I know they changed who does the music, but there were
Mm-hmm.
some, I don't know, I liked the I mean, so there's the main theme, and basically every other song in Mission Impossible is just a adjustment of that theme, and I liked
Very
the
true.
tweaks. And I mean, I liked the music in this, so I'm not complaining.
I
I
like
liked that.
this. I like the music in this one as well. I kind of noticed that okay, this doesn't sound like Lorne Balfe because he's a lot more percussion heavy at times, and this one I think is more spy-y. I guess it's a lot more slow and mysterious sounding, which I think fits the more deliberately serious nature of this one. So I actually liked it a lot. I still think Lorne Balfe could have done great, but these two guys did fine. I have no complaints there.
I mean, I feel like I already referenced it, but all the submarine stuff, very cool. Well, at least when he's in the submarine, I think that's like a great way to build tension and suspense. So, like him
Mhm.
basically having to climb through this, and it's rolling, so he's constantly adjusting
Yes.
what way is up and down. Uh,
That was really cool how they would keep the camera, like, stable in a locked position and then just roll it as the other parts of a ship continue to roll, so it looks like he's going upside down. Very, very cool. Um, in, like, a good way, I really hated him crawling through the, uh,
I don't.
torpedo port. Oh, it made me think, dude's gonna get stuck. He's gonna die, which is what you want. You want
Sure,
the
sure.
audience to be like, oh, is this how he bites it? So I think that was really effective.
I think it was effective, but also like there's him just pushing on his gear in front of him, open the hatch of like a missile that has to keep out water on. Okay, it's too. This is not the hill I need to die on. It doesn't matter.
No.
What else?
While I think it is
Um,
perhaps unnecessary, I do like the set for uh you know the Mission Impossible one guy and his wife. I think
oh sure.
it's a nice looking cabin, and then also I think that is one of the better action sequences that isn't
Hmm.
plane like dependent, where they're crashing through bookshelves, they're spraying gunfire all over the place. Like that was a very satisfying end to that build up of pressure between the Russian guys and them trying to like go out to the dog kennel thing like that. I think that was very effective. Does it need to be there that long? Maybe not, but it is cool.
The I don't know if if it was a thing in the sound system that you listened to it on in the theater you went to, but at least at the where I saw it, the part when he puts the face mask on and he's talking to the entity basically,
Yep.
which I thought was cool, and it was just enough where it sounded like Gabriel that you recognized it, but it wasn't just straight up he's talking to Gabriel, which I thought was cool.
I like that it was that they were like overlaying different voice actors to make it sound like he was a bunch of, or he was, using a bunch of different voice samples from other
Hmm.
people. I thought, it
Well,
was an interesting idea.
again, I don't know if, but in the theater that I was watching it in, basically, uh, the I don't know if it was this is the movie or the theater or whatever, but like that whole time I was talking, the voice would basically bounce all over the place. So like you'd hear it from the back left or the back right or the front left, or like it sounded like it was coming from all over the place, which was really really cool. It wasn't just like, oh, this is the voice and you can hear it everywhere kind of thing.
I didn't get that in my theater.
Oh,
I didn't
dude,
go to a nice one.
it was pretty cool.
I
Like
mean,
it.
I mean, I'll take your word for it. That does sound very, very cool.
What else? I I both. So I like that. I think this is where I feel very conflicted because I like that. Sure, if there was an end of the world and people are starting to become aware of the entity, sure, there would be a subculture of people who want it. and so there would be people who are infiltrating
Sure.
things and that are trying to encourage it to happen, like the whole him on the treadmill and then the guy tries to kill him. That was cool. That was a nice like little
Yes.
combat scene.
I think
Um
they needed to do that more to make it seem like they were everywhere.
yeah,
Having it
exactly.
just
That was
show up like twice in 3
yes.
hours, not that big of a threat.
One being there and then one being just some random secret service guy who ends
Yep.
up just getting shot by Nick Offerman.
Offerman.
Yeah. Eh. Although
It's an
it
interesting
was
idea, but they could have done more.
it was almost a little fun because there for a second when they were like showing that she decided not to prep the nukes and there she's relying on Ethan Hunt and uh, standing down all their nuclear weapons. Like they're like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And at first I was like, "Oh!" And Nick Offerman goes to get a sidearm from someone. I was like, "Oh, he's gonna be the guy who's fucking around."
I
Which
was curious why he grabbed that. I mean, I know why we have it later.
yeah,
What
that's
was
the
the
thing.
original
Before
reason
that
he
though, it
gets
doesn't really
it?
make any other sense though.
Yeah, confusing. Not sure. I do think that as much as I do think it kind of slows down the movie, it's good that we do have those bits where we are jumping back into that office so we can have check-ins to see, okay, where is the entity at when it takes over other people's missile defense grid, because that does help with the tension.
Sure. And again, it shows that there is a clock running kind of thing.
Yes, and I think in a lot of ways this one does that better than Dead Reckoning, the one before it, just because in that one, yeah, they are racing against the clock, but there's
Eh,
not really like, there's not really like a clear and present danger that they are trying to avert. They're just trying to get the key. I like that this one is a little bit more focused in that, oh, we need to get this to do this to stop this from happening. And we need to do it by this point. I like that it was a little bit more clear as to what the stakes were, even if, later we find out there were no stakes. But I like that there is at least
thinking about
the
that,
idea that there is.
yeah, thinking about that, the conversation where we had from Dead Reckoning, where the first movie should have ended at the beginning of that train sequence.
Yeah.
So, hear me out. That one ends at the train sequence. Second one is train sequence basically to the
Train sequence to sub.
that's what I was thinking. I was like train sequence to sub. Third one is sub to biplane. And that whole time, you get little bits of Shea Wiggum, you get a little bit of the other guys, you get check-ins from the people like, oh, it's slowly taking over more and more people. You have a lot more opportunities for infiltration where people are going to try to kill you. A
Yes.
couple more
It,
deaths
it
along the way, so it feels more real.
yeah. It really felt like they were trying to throw a bunch of character development and story progression into this one that they could have spread out in a much more organic way. Kind of in the same way when a couple weeks ago we were talking about Star Wars, and that a lot of, I mean, granted, there's a lot of things to be frustrated with
Sequels,
yes, but specifically Rise of Skywalker. But
agreed.
um, a lot of the problem there is that they tried to throw so much character progression into Rise of Skywalker that it feels scrambling and nothing really connects like it should. I feel like
Well, that's
this
because I
is
mean,
kind of similar.
again, separate conversation. Which, folks, if you're interested, listen to our May 4th episode. But uh, that's also because they were basically trying to retcon an entire movie's worth
Yeah.
of story for that. So, I can kind of understand that. Uh,
Yes.
was that 10 minutes? Because I'm
Yes,
starting to.
actually.
Perfect. Look at us. Who would have thought?
All
I
right,
think
I'm trying.
that's
Again, I didn't have anything written down. Is there anything else I want to mention?
that.
Submarine Captain is great. Um,
Yeah, 100%. He's great.
if anything, we should have had more of him and less of the blonde
Yes. Also agreed. Yes.
lady.
Yep. Yep.
What
I feel like
else?
they didn't actually use it. Like Gabriel was there for like the third act, which is like the bunker slash biplane, but he wasn't really around much the rest of the movie, I feel like.
No, no, and because they were really playing into the whole, oh, I say it's going to happen this way, therefore things are going to happen this way, so I don't have to check in with you all the time to make sure you're going on the path I want you to as a villain. Which is fine. You want to make it seem like he's in total control. He knows all the outcomes or whatever, but
Yeah,
it doesn't make him seem like a clear and present danger. Although I do like that they flip it to making the entity more of the clear and present danger in this one.
I'm looking at the casting and like, yeah, just they could have trimmed out several people.
Mm-hmm.
I did see that this was, I'm sure because they promoted it A so heavily and B as the last one, but this was the biggest opening of any Mission Impossible. So
Sure.
obviously I mean, it made its money.
I mean, even if I feel cheated, the marketing clearly worked.
And I don't know if I don't know if I feel inherently cheated. I just feel I would say I feel let down, but I don't say I feel cheated. Like there are lots of parts in the movie that I had fun with, but as a whole,
I
like,
I
you know what I mean?
guess
It's I'd rather
because
get this than not get it at all. Like, let's say they just
well,
stopped
sure,
at Dead
sure.
Reckoning.
Okay, but that's what I was saying earlier. It's just like no matter how you marketed this one, people were going to go watch it. I really detest the way that they decided to try and market this as, oh, it's the last one. You have to watch it. It's the end of a legacy. It fucking isn't. That's why I say I feel cheated because I wanted that climactic emotional end to the Ethan Hunt story, and we don't really get that.
That's fair. I do get that. That's I mean, it's an end, but it's not really the end.
No. I did have a thought though that since this one is trying to take itself, more seriously than ones in the past where they've been a lot more action oriented, and this one is a lot more dialogue and exposition oriented. This one kind of has the tone of a James Bond movie in a way, whereas the other ones are a little bit less serious. This one is more serious.
I don't think they're not serious. I don't. What do you
I
mean?
don't know. I guess in my mind, sure.
Well, I think it's an. I mean, we're at an hour more or less, so I think we're good there.
So you said a 3 out of 5 for you?
A 3 to 3.5 if I'm being generous. Because again, I feel like yes, there are obviously flaws. There are quite a few flaws, but there's lots of parts of that movie where I was like either excited or I was smiling or the few little laughs here and there. Like there are like I would not inherently call this a bad movie. I think it's a bad like wrap up to the series, but I don't think it's a bad movie.
Yeah. I guess for me this is like a, on the one hand, if I'm looking at this as a series installment, this is a 2. If I'm looking at this as is it a good adventure movie? It's definitely a solid three and a
Hmm.
half. Like it's nearly there. But, compared to everything else, it's so far below.
And with that
But
in
not,
mind, should
not
we
unwatchable.
yeah, so from there, I think we wanted to talk about all the Mission Impossibles.
Yeah, so if you've listened to episodes in the past, usually we will segue into a section called Icebreaker Audio, where we talk about ourselves, we talk about our lives, talk about our opinions on various subjects to make us seem more human and less like AI entities, like we were just talking about in Mission Impossible. But in lieu of this kind of sort of being the cap off to the Mission Impossible series, I think we're going to go ahead and do a bit of a retrospective where we essentially do the May the 4th episode, but for Mission Impossible, where we briefly glance over each installment and have our thoughts about it.
I'll be honest, I don't remember a ton. Some of these movies I have no recollection of.
So I remember rewatching all of them within the past year and a half, but I couldn't tell you what the plot was on a lot of them because after a while, and no pun intended, Mission Impossibles and Tom Cruise tend to run into one another.
Agreed.
If you have any memory of number one, what is it?
Well, I remember John Voight betraying them. I remember him jumping through like a big window with water at like a restaurant.
Yep.
And then I just remember the whole like wire scene where he's, the classic scene that they reference in this last movie one more than once. I think they show the same scene more than one time.
They show it twice. Once when it's like Kittredge having that completely unnecessary scene where he describes what he's done in the past to other people who don't know who he is,
Mm-hmm. Which
and
again, I
then
feel
again,
well. That's because I feel like they're trying to show this movie to yes, this is the final one, but you could come into this never having seen any of the other ones, and you could maybe figure it out.
maybe, but I feel like that shouldn't be
Your
the tone we
plan at
take.
number 8, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, this is Empire Strikes Back, and also we're gonna take the first 20 minutes of the movie and give you a backstory.
I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's more or less what it is, yeah. Um, so that's more or less all I remember from the first one. I don't remember number 2 at all.
I remember number two just because it is widely considered to be the worst of the series.
Who's the
Um,
bad guy? As there's always a bad guy.
I don't remember the bad guy actor, but he was essentially kind of just
Let's see. Mission Impossible 2, directed by John Woo.
this one
Uh,
is full of slow motion and like gratuitous like jumping action shots, and there's doves flying out from all over the place for some reason. It's like it's too over the top for like 2001 or whatever it was. It needed to, you know, we can't go from number one, which is still a very good action spy movie, at like a 7, and then immediately jump to 15 on the over the top scale. I think that's kind of the problem with number two, is that it's just too much. It's too wacky and too over the top. That's my abiding memory of it.
that's fair. And I feel like they kind of rein it in with number 3, which you've got not only Tom Cruise
Number
and
three is
Philip.
pretty good.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Not only do you have Tom Cruise and Philip Seymour Hoffman, it's also directed by J.J. Abrams. So,
Yes, it's like one of his first things, which
mhm.
I think it's very, very solid. I think if, especially to understand some of the plot for Final Reckoning, you actually do have to watch that.
Let's see. From there, so I don't know. I feel like they were trying to potentially hand off the reins to Jeremy Renner in Ghost Protocol,
Yes,
and it didn't work, and I'm okay with that. But I
I
liked
like
it.
Ghost
I
Protocol.
liked
I
Ghost
think it's
Protocol.
fun. I think Ghost Protocol is where they really found their rhythm, especially with Christopher McQuarrie as like a writer director. Even though I think that one was actually Brad Bird.
Yes, it was
Um,
Brad Bird, which is crazy to think. Oh, he did Disney movies, and then he's like, "Here, let me do this random Mission Impossible movie as well."
well, I think if you look at, oh yes, he did Disney movies, but also it was The Incredibles. That makes sense.
I suppose. Um,
But
I
I do
like.
think in that
I mean,
one
all
is where we get.
the the whole. There's a scene. I mean, obviously the scene that they flash back in Final Reckoning where he's climbing on the outside of the building. Sure, that's amazing. But all the inside the hotel stuff with Simon Pegg, where he's got the fake
Mhm.
arm, and they're doing all the like blinking that prints from in the other briefcase. That was where that was interesting spy stuff, and it wasn't too convoluted, at
Yeah,
least in my
and
opinion.
that's also one that introduces Rebecca Ferguson as a reoccurring character, and I like her a lot. So I credit that one for this as well. And that actually is something that I thought about is Final Reckoning doesn't really have a whole lot of spy stuff
Not
that the
really.
series is known for. Like there's
No,
no
it's more
face
action than
masks.
spy.
Yeah, there's no face masks, there's no like voice changers, there's no undercover work. It is just action set pieces, which is fine, but it is kind of missing series staples.
I think I want to rewatch Rogue Nation because I'm looking at this. I'm like, a lot of this is like Rebecca Ferguson in that dress with the sniper rifle at the opera. Very
Oh,
good. Or him
yeah,
on the motorcycle in like the desert in like the Hawaiian shirt zipping through.
sure.
I think I remember it being very good, but I really, again, I don't remember much. I didn't realize that while Christopher McQuarrie directed it, J.J. Abrams was a producer. Hmm.
Huh.
And obviously, I think I don't know if we can both agree, but what was that?
Oh,
6?
Fallout.
Fallout? I don't know if it's a
I
perfect
think
movie, but it's pretty fucking close, dude.
it may not be a perfect movie, but it is definitely the perfect Mission Impossible movie.
Yes, we're the right amount of stakes. Like it's very clear. The story isn't muddled. The villains are interesting. Uh,
And I think
there's enough
we have
spy stuff.
we should and I think we should be self-aware enough to notice that yes, we are both big Henry Cavill fans.
Sure.
Even if it wasn't him in this, we would still feel this way.
Yes. Oh, the whole like I mean, Grant. I could talk a lot about that movie in itself, but like even just a sprinkle to say like the bit where it's him and Cavill doing the skydiving into the Paris scene where they
That
had I
is,
don't
I
know if you've seen
think,
the behind the scenes stuff.
the most
The recording for that is amazing.
I've watched the recording of that like several different times just to wrap my head around the amount of like planning that goes into filming that scene. I think that to me is the most impressive stunt of the series, which is saying a lot, but like that is genuinely craziness.
And I mean, it's hard to beat that bathroom scene with the arm pump. Come on.
And also just like the amount of fight scene stunt work that goes into just that bathroom scene
Mm-hmm.
is great.
Yes.
And Cavill has such a great comedic repertoire right up until the end where you find out, spoiler alert, he's the villain, and then he plays a great villain.
And see,
And the
and that one
whole
they
ending
bury
chase
the lead
sequence,
the right amount.
correct, because there's a red herring with it being maybe Alec Baldwin.
No, not Alec Baldwin. Uh, I don't think it's Alec
So
Baldwin.
yes, there's like the terrorist guy in the beginning, which is a holdover from Rogue Nation.
Yes, which again, I feel like that's where they tied together those stories over 3 movies, and I think it worked really well. Whereas, again, I've already said it, but they did this storyline with the entity over 2, and I think they just should have just spread it out. But yeah, uh, the
To finish up
disciples or
Fallout, we are
whatever.
now
Hmm?
what?
What?
Would you say disciples?
Yeah, the apostles. That's what it was, not disciples.
I was about to say, what are we talking about?
Jesus.
I don't think this has very much of a religious slant. So
Okay. Anyway, Jesus Christ.
yes,
Um.
I know that's what I mean.
Okay. All right. All right. So, and then obviously from Fallout we go to Dead Reckoning, which we've already
Dead
talked about
Reckoning.
as an entire episode, and then Final Reckoning, which we just talked about for the last hour.
So clearly, they're going to make another one. Whether it's with Tom Cruise,
Or not.
whether it's with someone else, they're going to make another one. What do you want them to do differently? What do you want them to carry over, into Mission Impossible 9 or whatever it is? What do you want to see?
I think a changing of the guard, because I think you can't just start with new players. I think there needs to be some sort of handoff. Either someone was trained by someone, or someone is just somehow they need to pass the baton. Because I think you will upset a lot of like purists or whatever who are diehard. Like, if it's not Tom Cruise, I don't want to watch it. So I feel like you need to do something like that. I would say a a team that is uh, I mean, again, I feel like they already started to set it up a little bit with the French chick, the younger African American guy, even Shea Wiggum. They could have him come in as
Sure,
something,
be
but
the
like,
Jeremy Renner.
yeah, so it just I think something like that would work well. I don't think Haley Atwell should be the lead.
No, but I'd like her to show back up just because I like Haley Atwell a lot.
Sure, well, sure. No, and I think her character is fun enough, but I don't think, again, I
Yeah,
don't think she should be the lead. Um, I think they need to work on their story and decide right off the bat, is this going to be a one-off, or is this story going to take some time to tell? And if it is going to take some time, like, choose people who are going to be available for all the movies so you don't get any recasting. Have very clear sights of like this is the parameters of this movie or this like story that we want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I feel like every movie needs to have at least one big like this stunt sequence is like this movie's big stunt sequence because that's I think for the runtime makes sense, and also it's an easy way to sell each movie. Like, oh, that's the commercial for the
Sure.
movie is going to be the big main stunt, obviously. So I think that was something that people should consider. I don't think there needs to be a love interest.
I was kind of thinking that, and not that we don't have flashbacks to like Ethan's dead wife
Marriage.
or whatever. I mean, because there was Michelle Monaghan and a couple of the other ones and some other stuff, but I like that there isn't really like, we're not stopping in the middle of operations. We got to make out now or whatever. I mean, I like that this is everyone's pretty platonic.
Which uh there's some series I think that we literally talked about this when we talked about Star Wars, but like the whole trying to throw Rey and Kylo Ren together at the very end. Ugh, God, I still get angry about that shit. But yes,
Mm-hmm.
and I do think at least. Ooh, actually, okay. So I think the squad should be all the people that we already talked about, but the quote unquote Ethan Hunt replacement or his protege or whatever you want to call it should be a no name. And the rest of the squad
Correct.
is like Palm and everyone else, and they are showing him like, oh, this is the IMF kind of thing. I think that's what I would do.
Yeah. I think for the
And
next
he is
one,
and they are showing him the IMF, and the whole movie basically he's fighting it. He doesn't really want to do this. He's like, no, I don't really care. And then of course by the end of at least maybe the first movie, he's like, nah, I'm in. I'm here to save the world. This is my vibe. And then by the second one, he is like full on the guy. And by the second movie, Tom Cruise is gone.
sure. I
What do you
think for
think?
me, they need to have maybe not better villains, but they need to have a different kind of villain.
Well,
Because in one
yeah.
way or another, from Fallout to both of these two to even I want to say Ghost Protocol, the villain's main goal has been nuclear power.
Hmm.
Like, it's been bombs or missiles or something like that. Like, I want someone who's more distinctly evil. Like, I don't know, make a biological weapon. Make like I mean I don't know. I'm not the screenwriter. I'm just the ideas guy. But I think that they need to switch up who the villain archetype is.
I said also, by the way, people should die in these movies at some point.
Yes. I was about to say like you should start the movie off with a main character biting the dust. There needs to be some sort of visual representation of the stakes, not just oh, this is what could happen, and then in the nebulous, you know, possible future. No, we need to have an actual representation that the villain is willing to kill someone. You
Yeah,
know,
kill off Simon
kill off
Pegg.
Pom Klementov,
Yep.
kill off Simon Pegg. Like we need to hit the ground running with Ethan or whoever the main character is wanting vengeance of some kind. I think we need more chase scenes. One of my
Chase scenes
favorite
are good.
instances. Well, they are good, and I think one of my favorite scenes from the whole series in general is the bit in Rome in Dead Reckoning with Haley Atwell and Tom Cruise in that
That's
tiny little
good.
car, and
That's
they're
good.
and they're bouncing around the cabin, rolling downstairs and stuff like that. That is such a fun sequence, and I think we need more of that kind of energy. Not super serious. We need the right amount of fun, but still a reason for why we're doing things, I guess.
Yeah, again, I don't remember much about him, but I remember like there was a big sandstorm chase in Ghost Protocol, and then they had the super bikes out in some desert in Rogue Nation, but I don't remember
Yeah,
much about it.
yeah,
But
that was cool.
yes, when you really look at it, really
Those kind of
actually,
things were the things that we were missing in Final Reckoning. I feel
that's what I'm saying. Like Final Reckoning really didn't have one of those scenes, but it had obviously
no,
other things that the other movies didn't have. like a
Very
submarine.
true. Well, I think we have talked
Ad nauseam,
nearly half the runtime of the actual movie.
almost.
So why don't we end cap off that and move into things we have watched, things we're looking forward to, and then we will let the audience go. So, Duncan, I know you already posted some stuff about your own podcast, Dunk's Movie Corner. So, what have you watched recently?
Well, let me quickly pull up my account. So, I watched The Accountant 2 because it just became available on Amazon Prime. The first one,
What'd you think?
I like the first one better, which I mean, that's most movies. Even though a lot of people said this one was better than the first one, I disagree. What else? The John Williams documentary was very interesting.
Sure, I watched that with you.
Yep. I think the night before when I stayed the night at the parents, they were watching The Empire Strikes Back, so I watched that with them, and that's obviously fantastic. And that's what I was thinking about. Uh, Harrison Ford.
It's the best Star Wars.
I don't know. It's very good. And then I rewatched. Do you remember The Three Musketeers from like
Yeah, the one with Charlie
1993?
Sheen.
Yeah, dude. Oliver Platt as Porthos the pirate is so good.
I mean, that movie is super silly, but it's so much fun.
See, that's the thing. I was like, I had forgotten how like cheesy and ridiculous this movie is, but
Doesn't it
it's
have Tim Curry as the villain?
Tim Curry's the villain. Keith Sutherland as like the
I was about to
main
say
musketeer.
it's either Donald or Keith or Sutherland. I couldn't remember which.
Anyways, rewatched that. Had not seen that in forever. It's very fun. Not a great movie, but it's a very fun movie. I
Was that
rewatched.
Disney?
It's Disney Plus, yeah. Um, I found Boiler Room, which is like Wolf of Wall Street, way before Wolf of Wall Street.
I've
Uh,
heard of it.
a very like maybe 20-year-old Giovanni Ribisi and Vin Diesel and Ben Affleck and uh, James Caan's son. I can never the guy from one of the brothers from Ocean's 11. I
Yes.
can't think of his name, but yeah, that's pretty fun. Uh, I rewatched, and again, I don't want to say too much because we're going to do an episode on this later on in a couple weeks, I think. I rewatched Asteroid City, the Wes Anderson movie, and I've got some thoughts on that, but I will save those thoughts. And that, I think that's, I mean, I watched, I would say, quote unquote, I watched it was on in the background because it's such a shit movie and I just wanted something on to kind of decompress after a long day, but I put on Talladega Nights, and
That is
wow.
absolutely a decompression movie. I get that.
Which and I talked about this in my podcast, but so that was directed by Adam McKay, who also did Step Brothers and Anchorman 2, The Other Guys. I mean, he's done a lot of those kind of movies, right? And then he goes and
Yep.
does Vice,
The Big Short.
The Big Short, Don't Look Up. Like, sure, those movies have funny bits in them, but they're definitely not like The Big Short is not a comedy.
It's depressing as shit.
It's very good, but it is
I mean, it is,
depressing.
but it is not funny.
Either way, I did not realize that he had such a like dichotomy of directing because it's either really stupid Will Ferrell movies or it's some heavy stuff about like things that have actually happened.
Sure.
That is everything that I've more or less watched. I'm looking forward to Indiana Jones that we're going to see in theaters. That's good. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that quite a bit. And I mean, obviously, we're going to do an episode about that. So stay tuned for that next week because I don't want to share too much pre-movie opinions. But
Sure.
I am also looking for. I would say generally, I'm not like super psyched, but we at my work we are showing the Phoenician Scheme, the new Wes Anderson, and like
Always love me some Wes Anderson stuff. So
most people are liking it. There's been a couple times where I've gone in to deliver like a cocktail or something, and there's quite a bit of laughter. Uh,
good.
there's also people who are walking out there like I don't know, man. I don't know. So I'm curious. I would like to see it. So I'm looking forward to that at some
I
point.
think the people who are walking out confused may have never seen a Wes Anderson movie before.
It's quite possible because it is. I don't want to say it's an acquired taste because I mean,
I
I don't
think it
know.
is. I don't think his style is for everyone. He makes a very specific kind of comedy, and if that's not what you're there for, you might be confused.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe confused is the best way to word that. Yeah. Okay. Hayden, what have you watched or going to watch or anything like that?
So I haven't watched any like full length movies. I've been really enjoying a series off Netflix called The Terror, which is a nautical suspense drama show where it's set in the 1840s, and it's two British ships trying to find Northwest Passage, where they wanted to, you know, prove that they could sail through the ice caps and find a way to China. And it's the story of these two ships, the Erebus and the Terror, getting trapped in the Arctic ice flow, and cabin fever setting in and paranoia breaking out. And it's a really interesting setting. I like the drama. It is starting to veer in towards the possible like supernatural elements, which I'm not as big of a fan of, because I kind of like just the societal breakdown aspect of it, and not unless the, oh, is there an actual like demon Inuit bear hunting us? So I'm still enjoying it. I'm like halfway through. They're like hour-long episodes, but yeah, I will probably finish that within this week, and I'll have more to talk about it next time.
Okay.
And I guess things I'm looking forward to. I agree. I'm looking forward to seeing Indiana Jones in theaters. I think that's going to be a blast. Any new stuff though? Honestly, I don't think there's been anything new announced or released or whatever that I haven't
Oh,
mentioned in
what
other
was that?
episodes. So I
I
think that's
feel.
it.
Hold on. That Christmas Carol thing you sent me seems like not a real
Oh,
thing.
I think it. Okay, so what we're talking about is today is June the 11th, a Wednesday, and today I saw several different news stories all reporting that Robert Eggers is going to be making a Christmas Carol adaptation with William Dafoe. Now, that does sound very plausible, but also sounds kind of not real. So I get where you're coming with that, but I think it's real. That sounds very much in keeping with the kind of things he does.
We'll see. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, they put out the trailer for Eddington, but I've yet to actually watch it. So
I haven't watched it either. I don't remember if we want or talked about the trailer for Frankenstein or Knives Out from last week.
I believe we mentioned them briefly last time, but I'll reiterate that I'm a big Del Toro fan, so I will 1,000% be watching Frankenstein, even if it looked bad. Even and it doesn't, it looks great.
Oh,
Knives
I'm
Out, they don't really show you a whole bunch, but it. I mean, I like the other two. I'll probably watch it as well.
yeah. I'm sign me up for both. I
Yeah,
I I hope that they, even if it's only for like a limited time or something, take them to theaters instead of at home.
yeah.
And
I was
I would
disappointed
pay
to
extra for
learn.
that, but we will see.
Yeah, I would love to watch that Frankenstein adaptation in theaters.
And we want to end this episode as we are ending all with our new segment of Does It Bucket?
Oh,
And if you are curious what this segment is and want to know more, obviously listen to the previous episode. But Hayden, does Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning bucket? And what would that bucket be?
it does bucket, and I've seen the bucket.
I don't remember. Really?
Um,
I don't remember it.
yes, I sent it to you, and I will share
Oh,
this
it's
on
the
our
bomb. It's the time bomb thing, right?
the like it's the Sevastopol's like nuclear sub thing where it's got all the, it's big red dome, and it's got all these like little plugs sticking out of it. It's kind of cool looking. I don't know if that's what I would have chosen, but it is pretty cool.
Yeah, I would. I feel like either that or maybe something with the plane, because all of the marketing
I
had to
was
do with the
just
plane.
thinking that. I'm not sure what you could do, but surely you got to be able to do something with the plane. It's such a huge part of the marketing, you know.
Well, that was a quick,
But
easy,
yes,
painless one though.
I feel like would answer that it does indeed bucket.
And with that, folks, that is episode 51. We are again so close to doing 52 full episodes of this. And again, I'm sure we're going to probably talk about this a lot more next week for our 52nd episode, but wow, has this come a long way from where we started, of no
In
editing,
some ways, yeah.
no music, no nothing.
Those first like 15 episodes, while I can appreciate them, they are rough.
Yeah, but that's okay. Uh,
Yeah.
so if you want to be with us for the yearly celebration, tune back in next week. Uh, this will most likely be coming out on Sundays. And next week, as we referenced throughout, I feel like this podcast, we will be reviewing and talking about Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. So that's technically Indiana Jones 3, even though they're all sort of standalone, sort of. Um,
Kinda.
yeah, and if you have suggestions, comments, compliments, complaints, anything like that, you know where to find us, and we will talk to you or at you or with each other about you next week.